yeah, that'll happen.
Hillsdale Community Library.
Ah.
Wow.
Yep.
America's splendid little wars.
The security strip is still active.
Yeah. Are we doing that this year?
Doing what?
Book sale?
I don't know.
Okay.
Like,
Oh,
the
the Friends
Friends?
actually
Yeah, Friends
usually do
usually.
that.
I was gonna say, if it's all of the stuff from our, like the book sale over there, I don't think it's as catastrophically full as it has been in past.
Okay. There were
Yeah,
thousands the year I got this. That was 3 summers ago now.
I also have to apologize, the printer and I are not getting
Oh,
along.
no.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you have the one that was like the original, and so
Okay.
all of the rest are gonna suffer through double-sided flipping and
Mm,
upside down and.
Do you have a 7 minutes?
I do.
Yeah, sorry,
Do
the
you know?
packets are over there.
Oh, the packets, okay. Yeah, my minutes, the minutes that were in my packet were pretty readable.
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, see, okay,
Under
Like
Good.
that's
nine
it.
C.
Just haven't seen this.
Oh, yes,
Mine's not
yes,
there
you don't
too.
have a back, so here it is.
was there a bunch after 9C on there?
So after it, yeah, so there was, the discussion of
gosh.
unattended children, temporary library cards, the annual review. No, sorry. Forgive me. So the election of officers and then board appointments was
Okay.
primarily what was that.
I also, halfway through today when I was printing off and adding these in, because I was being proactive on Tuesday, I was like, oh, I'll just do this now, and
No worries.
doing it then was not a good day.
I'm sorry. Well, if there's anything missing from anybody's packet, I think mine are
I was gonna say, you
clean and
have,
complete, so I can share if there's
Yeah.
anything anyone needs to see. I'd say we have a forum, but then Josh disappeared. Where'd he go? Oh, well, when he's back, we can get started. No, I haven't seen anything. I'd heard from Karen that she wouldn't make it, you know.
and also, you hear rustling around or anything, it's just Heidi, she's setting up for a program on Saturday, so she'll be leaving at some point.
Sounds good. Josh, you ready? Okay. I haven't heard from him. Yeah. All right, well, a quorum being present, this meeting of the Hillsdale Community Library Board of Trustees is called to order at 5:05 p.m. on this day, the 9th of May, 2024. I note the presence of trustees Allen, Negus, and Palladino, the absence of trustees Hill and Stomford. We will move on to the approval of the agenda. Does anybody have anything they wish to add or amend in the agenda as presented?
The only thing that I don't really have anything to bring, I just wanted to, so I obviously, have brought and talked about the one card policy.
Yes.
I also think it might be beneficial to maybe offer a city employee card, which is basically the same as a regular card. But that is, I literally just brought it up at the department head meeting this morning, and so,
We
So
could-
adding it to the one card or making?
I mean,
an
that
item
it would
of
be a
business?
separate thing.
it would be a
surely
separate
it'd be
thing,
separate.
but
Yeah.
just in
That
the
would be new
same
business
vein of.
probably, right?
Under new, yeah. So, I will entertain a motion from one of our board members present to add an item C under new business, city employee card. Do I hear the motion?
Yes, so moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so that'll be added as item C under new business. Are there any other
We're calling it a city.
employee card, city employee card? Thank you. Any other changes to the agenda anybody wishes to make? No? Okay. Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented without amendment.
So moved.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second?
Any further discussion? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Next, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes from our meeting of April 11th. I do not see any changes I would make to these minutes, but does anybody else have any changes or questions regarding the April 11th minutes? They appear complete and accurate to me. Okay. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the April 11th meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. At this time, members of the public may stand up and address the board for visitor comments for up to 3 minutes, although the board will not engage in discussion or respond to questions. Do we have any comments from members of the public? Okay. Thank you. Hearing none, we will move on to the director's.
Okay, so I have to apologize in being a little bit short-staffed now. I definitely spend a lot more time up at the front desk, which is great because that's actually something that I've missed in switching to a director position. But as you can see, all this stuff, this is like literally as it comes from when I enter the statistics. So to know everything aside from the first column that says what each line is, the first column after that would be from March, and then the second is April.
Understood.
So left March, right, April. And as you can see, or as I have written, there are very few things where the statistics and circulation and everything else that have decreased that weren't, like if anything did decrease, it was very minimal, like nothing crazy that we were like, oh, people aren't checking out nonfiction anymore, for example. There's nothing like that where it was kind of like, oh, that's really far down.
Yeah.
Except for Libby, but that is kind of a, sometimes I don't want to say I don't take Libby and Hoopla into consideration, but I know some people are like, some people are all for electronic books or e-services and some people aren't, so I mean, I still think altogether the numbers are pretty good. I was pleasantly surprised to see the increase in the adult new fiction books. That's 150 up.
Yeah.
Which felt. Are you missing it?
No, oh, sorry.
It must be. Unless that's on
It
It's
might
on the
be
back
on
of
the-
minutes,
Ah.
Yeah. Okay. So that to me, honestly, I have written down below on that table, that is the highest it's been since I've been here. The closest that number has been, I think, was like maybe in the 320s back in December. But now that I don't consider December, to me, December was still kind of like my first. That was my first real board meeting because my first one was actually 3 days after my first day. But anyways, I, in every sense of it, am pretty happy with all of the circulation. The only notable category of aged books would be the junior ones. And to me, that was just the junior fiction and graphic novels that kind of took the biggest hit. I, in thinking about it, am not sure if that's just because I don't know if maybe spring break, although that was kind of the last week of March. Maybe it's just getting nicer out and kids aren't coming in. I'm not really sure. There's nothing that I can think of. But yeah. And also April was the first month in a while that we've been open with no weather or holiday closures. Unfortunately, May and July, I don't think June has anything that I can think of in terms of holidays that we're closed for. But that could potentially lead to some of it, that we were just open more hours. And all of the miscellaneous, or I should say, all of the programs, like I have stated, everything, I didn't include the stats for that one because they're a little bit messier and not as fun to look at or easy to look at, but everything, like I said, has been well attended, and there, as you can see on the bottom of the first page, there were 2 weeks in a row that Heidi had like, I think 52 or 53 people attend her Little Bookworms, and then there was also, I think, 48, I believe. So it was pretty busy, and luckily that was after Vida had left. And so it wasn't down here in this small room compared to down over there. So that was great. Everything in terms of the miscellaneous patrons, reference questions, all of it seems great to me. The reference questions, the big boost in that, which I brought up at the April meeting, a lot of that had to do with the solar eclipse glasses.
Right.
So yeah, I did bring them up then, but they technically fall into this report. Facebook and Instagram seem to be like, that seems normal to me. What it is this month seems pretty normal. I think March had a bit of a lull, so I think it's back to normal. And then for once, also our financial, everything that we can make money on was beyond what it was back in March. A few notable things to mention. So number 8, which is meeting rooms and other rent, that is from Vida. Most of that, the 5,000.
Is that the figure we were expecting?
Yes. And then the other 150 is just other random one-off things that happened. And then you'll see under number 12, which is other revenue and trusts, the 2,000, there was $2,000 that we got from, essentially from the Woodlands Cooperative. They consider it a grant, but basically you just request for the money. You don't have to say, hey, I wanna do this or that with. That is the money that, for example, like Jessica purchased all of the teen furniture. That's where that money came from. Yes, so my initial thought and plan for that, or at least some of that money, I don't necessarily want to say replace, but the new bookshelves, the bookshelves in the junior room for the new books, they're really too small end tables, and it's not enough space for how many new junior books we get. So that is one of the things that I would like to purchase, and potentially use those 2 end table type displays for something else somewhere. But I haven't really made any jumps on that yet either. Everything else in terms of the financials, the other thing I should point out is under number 10, other donations. So we were listed in a patron, she passed away. She listed us as one of like the donations in memoriam. And so I just calculated it and sent an email to the woman so she could, send cards. And I believe we're up to just under $600 from random people. There's one from New Hampshire, one from, or 2 from Maryland. They're from not necessarily here.
She asked to be given, money to be given here in memoriam.
In memoriam of her. I was gonna say.
So it's not from her fault money.
No,
Well, that's interesting.
yeah, she was a patron here. I had asked a few of the staff here if they remembered or recognized her, and they didn't really. I mean, when there's so many people, I think sometimes they're not, I don't wanna say they don't stick out, because that's not the word I wanna use, but she was a regular patron. I know that upon looking back at her records from the past few years, but, so yeah. The 320 though, that's how much we had by the end of April, so we've gotten almost double that now in the last week.
Okay.
Week and a half.
You know a surviving spouse?
Um,
sibling, or child that you could write a thank you letter to?
Oh, yeah, so I think it's her daughter, it's either her direct daughter or a daughter-in-law. I just sent her an email and, have a list of every person that has donated to us. I'll probably also send them a thank you card, or thank you cards. So, yes, and I can't remember if the daughter's from around here now, but I wanna say she is. But yes, there is a contact.
Thanks.
Luckily this time there's a contact with our donations. So yeah, that's really the most of what I have there. I know also normally come with some other just small happenings in the library, but honestly, a lot of the things that I would have told you guys about, I kind of just covered here. The only other thing that I wanna include, which I need to create maybe a line in one of these statistics spreadsheets, we have had, so I'm a notary public and I have been since I think the beginning of March.
Yes.
And we've had, I wanna say, somewhere between 10 and 15 notaries. And this is a bit of a change, so I think when Jessica, the previous director, was here, she charged, I think it was free for everybody who had library cards, and 3 for people who didn't. Based on the way that notarizations work and how you get to be a notary public, I have it as free to anybody in the county, and then I think $1 for people who are from without, which I haven't had that yet. But so myself and then 2 of the staff, we were asked to do a notarization and for 2 witnesses. And this gentleman basically donated to us the amount that would cover like all of them had we not changed the prices. So it's basically, yeah, it was kind of like a pleasant surprise. I mean, we were definitely signing for a hot minute of, you know, all right, your turn, basically weaving around on this document, but, yeah, and I have like 2 more scheduled, I think there's one tomorrow and one next week, so that's a pretty regularly scheduled service.
And you don't find that cutting too much into your other duties?
Oh, no, I mean, normally, aside from the one that we had to do all of that signing, cause there was, not only did we have to have 3 people signing, but they also had two of them, so we had to do the same thing twice. That one took some time, but aside from that, normally it takes me like 5 minutes if that. Yeah, normally people don't have, there's just one sheet and not a whole bunch going on. So yeah, nothing too.
I'm glad to hear an update on that.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Thanks.
All right. Was there anything else you wanted to point out or any questions anybody had before we move on to the balance sheet and the revenues and expenditures? All right. So I had a look through balance sheet, revenues, expenditures. I didn't see anything that jumped out to me. Is there anything you would want to point out?
The only thing is just that I can tell you guys that we got the money for the townships, and like I said, also the VITA tax they paid as well. That to me is really the only substantial thing that I would point out.
And that's revenues and expenditures, right?
Any questions for the director on either of those items? No, sounds good to me. And like I said, no surprises this month, nothing that jumped out to me as needing questioning or discussing. So if that's all set, I'm willing to move on to the next item, which would be our communications, and our only item under that is our regular communication from the Friends of the Library.
I know you can't talk back. April is when a lot of spring sports starts for a lot of our kids, and that is track. And if you know anything about middle school track in Hillsdale, pretty much every kid participates in that. Our taxes will be filed this month. We have an upcoming raffle at the Foodie Walk with a basket. And we voted to pay for a guest to come for summer reading. And we told Rebecca to go ahead and research some other fun visitors for summer reading and just bring us a wish list with cost, so that we'd like to help with that, so. That's
And
pretty much
the guest has already been arranged for?
Yes, it's Abraham Lincoln.
Abraham. something?
Abraham Lincoln.
Oh,
He's very,
Yes.
very popular.
lovely.
Yes, from very far away. And then we plan to try to help with the passports. So we said that we would have a nice little
I just ordered more, so.
pizza night passport creation. And we will not be meeting in May, as most of us are in education, and that is, our normal meeting week is the last week of school, and that's impossible.
That added. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
All right, next, item 8, old business. Item A, building issues.
I would
Where are we at?
love to provide an update. I would love to, but
Okay.
I don't wanna say I've moved on from folk, but
Okay.
I have definitely been researched and I don't know if you'd call it a short list
Mhm.
for it being those that are my favorites, but an actual short list because there are many options.
Mhm.
But I know that Karen had said something about somebody that she knew of, but because she's gone, I haven't really been able to
Mhm.
reach out to her and figure out that one because,
Okay.
I can't remember if she said it was somebody from Camden or Cambria or something like that, but, and I don't know, I can't remember if she's ever told me when she's even coming back. I mean, I know she's coming back.
Okay. When assumes.
But I don't really know when she's coming back yet, so.
I think she's responding to email if you shoot her a message.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you have any, aside from that, do you have any other names?
There is one, I think it's Francis Construction maybe, or maybe I'm thinking of just, I know it's not folk, but it might not be construction, but there's something of that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Bill Francis.
maybe, yeah.
I wish I had something to offer, but I don't have any connections with local construction companies, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, and I had also just been talking to, I think it was, might have been HR, Laura, we were talking about it, but it pertained more to keys, but I know that we're kind of also interested in changing to the keypad system instead of keys, but I know that keys still kind of are utilized, so, she said that DPS could do that sort of stuff.
Does DPS have any other connections with local construction companies they routinely use on city buildings?
I have just folk.
Okay. What about G&G? I know we've heard they could be pricey, but.
They're like on the short list of
Okay, so they're on your list.
I was gonna say, and I can't remember from last meeting if it was, I think it was everybody kind of talking about how pricey they could be, but also knowing that when they were fixing the front door, whoever it was, said that it was likely gonna be pricey if we were to do more than just a service call. So I appreciate the honesty of him saying that, so that kind of, that at least tells me that they might just be pricey going into it, and there wouldn't be any shocks there, so.
So aside from the door, what about the doors, if you're ready to move on from discussing doors?
I am, yeah, happy to
Okay.
move on.
Any other questions on that? What about the carpets job?
So the only thing that I can update on that yet, I don't have any sort of inkling on what direction to go with that, but knowing what we've put in our budget to take care of the carpets, I think we've discussed that it'll probably only get this room and the meeting rooms. And I can't remember if I told you this in our meeting last week, but I am also wondering if we could potentially reach out to the foundation, because we have an endowment fund through them, that we could, let me back up just a sec. So this fund, we have to use funds from either every year or every 3 years. I think they're kind of going between changing their policy, but I think that could qualify as one of our withdrawals, and so that way we could probably just do the whole thing.
And this is the HCCF?
Yep, what is that? The Hillsdale?
County Community Foundation.
Yes,
Okay,
yeah,
okay, so we might be able to use that.
yeah, so
Both
we can take use what we put in our budget, but then also
Okay.
get the money from that too.
Okay.
But I had reached out to the director over there, Sharon, and had asked her a few questions, but I think they're kind of in the middle of their own grant cycle. And so she said she would reach out to me, I think next Tuesday, or after next Tuesday, so, yeah.
Okay.
That's where I'm at with that. I remember when I had originally kind of looked into the carpeting, I don't wanna say I got overwhelmed, but I couldn't find something that was similar to what we have. and I don't know how much I want to, like, I don't wanna show up and, or have them show up and put a red carpet in.
Yeah.
So I wanna make sure that I can get something that's neutral like this again, but maybe doesn't. I don't know if it's possible to get something that shows less stains or what, but, when I originally looked, I think I was just looking at either like Home Depot or Lowe's just to see a variety of colors. And it was like, after a certain point, it all kind of just blends together. You're like, this is just carpet.
That's right.
And yeah, so I kind of just want to see if it's worth, or wait and see if it's something that the foundation can help us out with. I mean, it's our money anyways, but just to see if it's gonna be a full remodel or just the 2 rooms, so.
Okay.
So aside from if we suddenly discover we have connections in the local construction industry, is there any other help the board can be
I don't think so.
any of these items?
No, probably the only thing that I would say aside from the construction stuff is that kind of when it gets closer down to it, maybe providing some input on carpet color, carpet,
Sure. Happy.
carpet. I know that I don't want shag carpet, so don't worry about that. But I will say, like I said, I don't want to put red carpet in here. However, I do also think that we could make this room just a little bit more lively and like peppy. So I don't know if that means a different colored carpet or something, but that is also kind of on a radar of mine too. So, but.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Any further questions for the director?
No further thoughts on the lower lot. It does, did we figure out if it belongs to us? I can't remember what you said.
It is ours. We purchased it from the Chevrolet, whatever what it was.
So we have documentation saying the library purchased that lot from the Chevy dealer.
It is a part of our parcel,
It is a part of our parcel.
but the city manages it. So
Okay.
like they take care of
Oh, you
snow
didn't get it,
removal.
okay.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And the city probably approves like the market setting up shop there.
yes.
Mhm. So,
Do
We don't really have any control
Do we
over
want it?
as
Cause
ours.
if we're gonna be blamed for it not being paved, should we sell it to the city, give it to the city, sell it to the school district?
I mean, honestly, giving it to a school district would make a lot of sense because those are the people that use that parking lot the most. Like, arguably, during the school year, I've seen, I mean, I'm not staring out the window the whole day, but, you know, there's a school bus at least once a day, probably in the morning too, but I'm just not here at 7 a.m. Doing the same thing, pick up and drop off of a heavy bus and all of the vehicles from all the parents. And like I said, in city council, like people who go to the businesses across the street, which, you know, stuff like that, where it's not that I don't want people using our parking lot, it's just more so, I know that it's not our patrons using that, hardly ever, if ever.
So we do have the sense that when it comes to the library's own needs of where our patrons park, our patrons are primarily using the upper lawn.
The only time that lower parking lot is used by people coming into the library is probably election days. That would be it.
Also a city function.
Right.
That they use our building for.
Okay. So in that case, as far as we're aware, so 2 points, as far as we're aware, the lower lot is legally our property and our responsibility.
We purchased it
currently.
originally.
We purchased it originally, do you know when?
Probably in the 90s.
Okay. But also as far as we are aware, it's not primarily used by our patrons, it's primarily being used by the
100%.
public for either local shopping or for school drop-off and pickup, especially by school buses. In that case, I do think, if that's really the case, we might seriously ask whether or not this needs to be library property at all, or whether or not it should be, you know, sold or given to the city, or, we should probably explore our options there. Do
It's
we,
not the most, it's not the worst parking lot.
I have to agree, when I
If you
drove,
look around the city,
When I drove
well,
by
that's, that,
It's
do you,
a low bar.
is
It's a
is
low
that a
bar.
bar you want to set?
that's true.
yeah, when I drove by it after I left on Monday, I seriously, I almost took a picture and was like, it doesn't seem that terrible to me, it's not the worst parking lot I've ever driven in, there's not potholes, there's not,
It's sort of a non-issue, I'm sorry, I'm just making sure
Well,
we're thinking about
It
it.
came up, the director was at presenting our annual report to the city, and a city council member asked a question, so it's worth discussing. That being said, I do think we have a substantial consideration here, which is that we own property that, as far as we can tell, we don't really use. But members of the public do make consistent use of, and somebody has to be responsible for its upkeep. So I think what we have to do, not to just kick the can down the road, is maybe, it's not an item of business this month, because we didn't put it on the agenda, but I think for next month, we put an agenda item on the agenda that says we are going to discuss and potentially form a subcommittee to seriously make movements toward doing something about that. Because what we can't have is for a piece of library property to just be sitting there gradually deteriorating while we make no actual use of it, and while we don't actually consider it an asset. So maybe put that as an agenda item down for next month for consideration, because I don't actually think it's a non-issue. I don't think we're bothering the director with trivia. I think we've got to do something about it. The question is
It's not a pressing issue.
it's not a pressing issue. No, it's not an emergency. But if you just keep saying it's not an emergency, eventually it's an emergency. So yeah, I think it would definitely be worth making just its own dedicated item of discussion for next month.
my other thought on it too is that we haven't had anybody of the public come to us and say, this needs to be
Yeah.
fixed. Now, that's not to say that somebody of the public hasn't gone to their council member and said,
Mm-hmm. What's going on?
please,
Do something
please
about this.
advocate
Right.
for me on this, but
Right.
I feel like normally and naturally, somebody would come to the main, I don't know what to say, the main problem, the people that, like,
Right.
they would come to us
First
and-
point of contact.
yeah, exactly, and say something, but since I've been here, nobody has said something, and the talk of the parking lot has only happened since we've got in money in my,
Right, and somebody immediately starts thinking, oh, what could you do with that?
yes,
When was the last time our upper lot was resealed, do you know?
I have no idea.
Because if it's just a blacktop reseal, it should just be a few thousand.
I was gonna say, and if
Unless
that-
you're gonna reconstruct it, which I
Yeah.
don't think we're at that stage.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's one thing we can do is explore, all right, even if giving it away or selling it would be literally too much trouble, if it's just a couple thousand or a few thousand to reseal it, fine, we'll just keep it, we're not using it, but we're willing as a matter of public service to take responsibility for it and keep it in good repair, as long as it's not going to be too much of a burden on our budget. You know, that might actually be less bothersome than trying to figure out what else to do with it.
yeah,
Sure. But yeah, I definitely think that needs to, since it's a substantial consideration of what to do with a piece of property, that should definitely be on its own item on an agenda, published published ahead of a meeting, absolutely. And will probably necessitate the formation of a subcommittee, so somebody can take the time to get really into the weeds with it.
oh, great, yeah.
All right. Anything else under building issues we need to discuss? No? What's that? All right. Next item, the director's annual review. So I shared my final compilation review based on everybody's comments. I got comments from all board members, from the city manager, and from a library employee, and pretty much across the board, absolutely positive. I would offer constructive criticism, except I don't have any criticism to offer yet. Once you start making trouble, we'll see.
Okay.
No, but, no, everything was excellent across the board. I have nothing further to add to the comments in my formal evaluation that I shared with you ahead of the meeting, and with the rest of the board ahead of the meeting. And I think your, goals for your self-evaluation, review of accomplishments, and stated goals for the coming period look good. Where are my list of your goals? Did that not make it into the packet?
It's the last.
There it is.
Yeah.
It's under the self-evaluation, yes, of course. Did anybody have any further comments? Anything they wanted to add?
The only thing, and I don't really care if you go back and take it as excellent,
Yeah.
but the only thing is under number 2C, or not C, I haven't hired or fired anybody,
Number
2D.
2D.
I will say that, I guess, a little bit unbeknownst to you guys, we did do all of our staff evaluations with
Oh,
them, and
I
I
see.
met with
Okay.
everybody.
Okay,
And in our policy, it says everything has to be sent by the end of April, and
Okay.
I did, but I guess I
Okay.
didn't tell you guys that.
okay,
But yeah, everything with the staff has been pretty positive. I met and spoke with each of them individually, and, you know, obviously went over everything that they said about themselves. If they had anything that any concerns they wanted to address, or, you know, any points of, anything to bring up. And I believe there was one employee that, it was nothing negative, just things, she had recently done some webinars and just providing some feedback on it, really. So I don't even, not necessarily related to her evaluation, but everything went pretty positively. So that was the only thing I wanted to say, just,
Okay.
yeah.
great. And that's fine. I mean, I ticked it in A because I wasn't aware of staff evaluations having yet been done under your watch. I think, given that this was the version of the evaluation that was shared with everybody prior to the meeting, if I'm going to alter it in any way, I could probably, since we haven't yet voted to approve it, we could probably make a motion to approve with the stating with the amended alteration, and I would certainly be happy to mark that as excellent.
Yeah, I guess I shouldn't have said, you don't have to mark, you can mark it as anything,
Oh,
but I
sure.
did say excellent. But you don't have to.
And you haven't yet recommended that we hire any specific person or fire any specific person yet.
Nope,
So that is still in A.
The only, and I don't know if this is kind of getting just a tiny bit ahead to the new hires.
Oh.
If you want me to wait, I can, actually.
Sure, we'll just wait for that item.
Okay.
If that's fine.
I would like to put in, when
Yes.
I spoke with Heidi about this whole section 2, utilization and development of staff, she mentioned that staff evaluations such that I think we can mark it excellent.
Good, thank you.
Just to give a little extra.
Sure. I'm certainly happy to make that amendment
Okay.
if everybody else is.
Mhm.
Excellent. Okay. So aside from the evaluation itself, of course, we have our goals for both short-term and long-term goals. First goal, increase collaboration with other county libraries. Second, under short-term, figure out how to accept book donations. So could you expand on that?
Yeah, so ever since I've been here, even on like the little whiteboard in my room or in the office, it says something about not taking donations currently. And basically anytime that somebody approaches us and, you know, wants to donate stuff, we tend to tell them no. We have had a few people where it's like brand new book that we don't have, and it's like a popular book. So like, for example, I don't know if you guys know about the author Taylor Jenkins Reid. As you can see, she's a pretty popular author, and there was, I think there was 2 books, 1 or 2 books that somebody said, you didn't have it, but I wanted to read it, but now I want to give it to you. So there are some things where it's like, okay, like I know that this author is popular. There are oftentimes people who, so for example, when you came in last week, there was somebody that donated to us like a bunch of books that clearly are brand new from like a classroom, probably like the college classroom. And so I went through and chose a few things that I wanted to add to our collection. And then, because they're all like pristine condition, Sierra has listed them in our Amazon to sell. And I don't think any of the recent ones have sold, but she has been selling a few things, again, so that's cool. But I think the main problem is just that very quickly, once we start accepting donations, we run out of room on those shelves, and we have no extra storage space back here to say, all right, the public shelf is getting low, let's go put some more out. Like, we don't have nothing. If our not mechanical, but there's a room like straight back down that hallway, it has archives from like the women's club and I think the garden club. If that area didn't have that stuff, we could probably figure it out and put stuff back there to just kind of say, all right, like I said, we'll bring out, a little bit more.
That was packed before your time, I think, before we did the book sale in 2021. That whole room was full.
With books?
Yeah.
And like so on the one side of it, there's cupboards and it's full of puzzles. We have a bunch of puzzles. And I mean, we also rotate out and have like the public puzzle that gets done pretty regularly as well. So unfortunately, the puzzles have to stay. They are a mainstay here.
Okay.
But we also on the public sale or over there are puzzles over there too. So I'm pretty sure every once in a while we might put out the ones that have been used. But I'm not quite sure. I don't know if the puzzles over there were donated at some point, but everything else, like I said, it's all archives of other groups that have stuff here. And I don't know, I haven't looked through them because I'm not in the women's club, I'm not in the garden club that I was interested in spending time to look through it. But to me, that is really the only location in the library back here that we could do that without making it a clutter to somebody else or some other part of our function, our job function. So.
Do we have an agreement with them to keep these things? Do you know where?
I have,
residents
I was
are?
gonna
Do
say,
you have any contact with them?
I don't think I've seen anything in my desk regarding that sort of stuff, anything recent at least. I mean, but to be fair, there is also in my office it looks like it's almost taller than me, if not taller than me, of files might be in there to comb through, but it's not always my highest priority to do that sort of stuff. So it really is just trying to figure out a space to do that. And I don't know. I mean, if we didn't use the shelves back, like in the staff area over there, that's where, Sierra has all of her Amazon books. So it's like, either we keep hers so she can sell them online or we keep some to sell here. While also competing for others, just regular library stuff.
The
So-
sale is nice here, but I assume the Amazon sales make more money because we sell.
It depends, it just depends, I think when she first started it, she sold a lot and made a lot of money, and then I think just occasionally, it kind of goes through lulls sometimes she sells a lot, sometimes it's just a little bit quieter, so, that's my thing, I can't think of anywhere else, because the only other closet we have is, basically, the craft closet, but that's also full to the brim of things that Heidi uses for all the stuff that she does, so she does a lot, so I can't displace any of that. So yeah, that's where I'm at with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any further questions on that? So I also see connecting and doing outreach with local senior centers, working more with local schools and getting more books to more people.
Yeah. I would also probably just connect the more books to more people with the senior centers and outreach. Because I can't think of can't think of many other things that I think we could afford to do.
Mhm.
Like, I don't think we can afford to have a bookmobile. That's really the only other, like,
Mhm.
outreach that isn't just, straight going to Perennial Park or any of the senior centers, so.
Now, something that was in the eval form that we just marked NA this year was basically how well you handle class visits from schools. So have you considered that maybe that might be something we make a goal of reaching out to local
Well,
schools
and
to
so
arrange?
I do have a question about
Yes.
that. School visits would mean when they're coming here, correct?
Yeah,
Or
I-
either way.
You came to us though for our family night too.
I was gonna say,
So-
we've also had stuff from
Yeah.
Hillsdale Prep, they just came here either this Tuesday, I think it was this Tuesday, yeah. And they came and they got like I don't wanna say they got a special, but they got a story time,
Okay.
a craft and all that sort of stuff, a little tour.
Great.
Unfortunately, that's not necessarily entirely on me though, that's more so Heidi because she's
It's
the
still
one.
under your direction.
Yeah, so I would say school visits in the sense that this probably means, I guess I would say no, but yeah, we have gone to Geyer and Hillsdale Prep had something here and, yeah,
Okay.
so.
So based, I believe on the comments from your self-eval, I put that down as NA this year because there isn't a routine arrangement where
Mhm.
whole classes come from local schools
Yeah.
to visit the library, be introduced to the collections, be introduced to the services. And that as kind of a formal arrangement is when it says our local school class visits planned in a timely manner and is staffing scheduled to accommodate the visits. That to me means a whole class coming to the library with their teacher and being introduced to the library while staff help them out and show them, the ropes of using the library and so forth.
Yeah, I guess since I've been here, I can only think that just Hillsdale Prep is probably the only one that had a class come here.
Okay.
I can't think, and I've not really not been here, like, I've never taken a vacation where I would have missed a week of,
Yeah,
somebody
I
coming
assume
here.
if it was happening, you would know.
Yeah, so I think that's probably the only time, so I guess only once,
Okay.
very recently.
Right. But do you think that's something where if you did communicate with local schools, that's something that might be arranged on a more regular basis?
Oh, I
potentially?
for sure think so.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it's gonna have to wait about 3 months.
Understandable.
But in August, I'm sure would probably be a good time to reach back out to them
Assuming
and,
that could be arranged.
yeah.
Sure, all right. Thank you. Any other questions for the director about her self-evaluation or her goals for the coming year? No? Okay. Well, aside from hearty congratulations and many kudos, I don't have anything to add to the evaluation as stated. So what the next thing is that the board needs to vote on to accept the evaluation as presented, and then we sign it. And if you wish, you can sign it now. It says in the policy document that the president then takes the evaluation signed and approved by the board and has a separate meeting with the director where the director agrees to sign it. Do you want to have a separate meeting, or would you be willing, if we voted on this now, would you be willing to sign it?
I would be willing to, if that would make your life
I
easier.
mean, if that's all right with you, and
Yeah.
then the only other signature we would need to get on this would be the city manager's.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so is there any further discussion from members of the board before we entertain a motion to approve with the one amendment proposed? No? Okay. So I will entertain a motion to approve the library director's evaluation as presented for 2024, with the proviso that under utilization and development of the staff, we mark item D, our staff annual evaluations prepared and administered in a timely manner as excellent rather than in A.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
all right. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. So next, we need to get signatures on this, so I'll just hand around the signature page. Just a moment.
Can I borrow your pen? When you,
Yes.
not right now, yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
you can finish yours.
Actually, yours is the first signature on the page, so. there you go. And once that gets back to me, I will take it and make sure this gets to the city manager for his signature.
Because Stephanie and Karen aren't here, do they not have, will they have to sign that at some point, or just because they're not here, they won't have to?
I think, as long as it has the signatures of a quorum of the members,
Okay.
and it was officially approved, it's probably sufficient. I don't know if it states in the policy.
Okay, just curious.
There we go, and I'll make sure to get that to Mr. Mack. Okay, so that concludes item D under old business. Item C is new hires.
The only thing, so I told you guys at the last April meeting that there was somebody who was interested in a summer position. Funny enough, I got 2 people who sent in, with only speaking to one person. They both sent their applications in at the same time. I have reached out to the one that reached out to me initially. We are planning on speaking next Monday, just because she has prior experience here at this library, at the college library, and she's an English major, and she works, I would say at her college's learning center. She's a tutor, so I think she has a good amount of experience and exposure to that sort of stuff. I also have 2 staff that speak highly of her and remember her being here.
Great.
So I think she would be easy to train and kind of reacclimate to here for the summer. It'll probably come up in my phone call with her, but she probably, so I think I told you guys, or perhaps I didn't, but her wage obviously will not be like if she had been working here this whole time or anything like that, so it won't be the highest wage by any means. But she will probably likely, just because we don't have somebody else to take on an S position yet. We have received a few applications, I think 2 or 3 maybe. And I haven't reached out to anybody yet, just because I'm kind of waiting to get a few more, if we can get a few more, knowing that if we have a summer hire, we might just have to kind of, if we have somebody during the summertime, I think we can get through the summertime. And that being said, the temporary hire, I think, will likely, probably, depending on her interest and her availability, would probably work more than just Tuesdays and Thursdays. But for sure Tuesdays and Thursdays, because that is our necessity right now. That is what we need. So that is just really the update I have on new hires. I was just pertaining to the evaluation, was just gonna say that I'm not necessarily telling you guys I've hired somebody yet, but I would say, had this meeting happen next Thursday, might have been a different conversation about that, yeah.
Okay.
And the other person who applied, I have been kind of thinking about it. I don't know if it would make sense to hire 2 temporary people if it was necessary. I think that came up at the last meeting. They are both local to around here, or from here. They're in school, so they're obviously not here right now, but they're from Hillsdale, so, I understand that money as a college age kid is pretty nice to have. So I for sure would just like to speak with the one person first and then just kind of see after that. But the actual like permanent position, have not made any grand steps yet.
Okay.
So that's really all I have for that.
Okay, sounds good, thank you. I don't think I have any questions, does anyone have any questions? Excellent. All right, next under old business is the one card policy. So we have a final draft of the policy in front of us that was shared prior to the meeting. We are in a position now to formally vote on whether to adopt it and send to the city attorney for his approval.
The only thing,
Is there,
I was
what do we
gonna
got?
say, the only thing I would like to say, that
Mhm.
what should be on the backside, and maybe you, yes,
is
you
the
have it.
agreement form?
Yes,
Oh.
it's
Or the
basically
agreement form?
basically the same as our library card application, except
Do you
for.
want me to pass that down, because I saw it, I looked at it earlier.
Except for the fact that it cuts out a few things that were cut out as part of creating this card.
Right.
So it just asks for an email or a phone number, and, yeah.
And the privacy policy is always given out with all
Yep,
applications.
so that
Yeah.
should be, I think, on yours, it actually should be double-sided anyways.
Mhm.
But yeah, maybe yours,
Yeah, so on mine, one sheet was the policy on one side, the application form on the other, and
What
then
it
the
should-
privacy policy as a third.
so
as a
yeah,
third
what it
sheet.
should be is privacy policy and the actual agreement form.
Okay,
like
so the
afterwards.
eventually what you're gonna be handing out is a piece of paper with the agreement form on one side, privacy policy on the other.
Yes,
Understood.
unless you guys think it makes sense the other way around.
No, cause then this
Makes
would
sense.
stay in.
Okay,
Right,
Right.
and it's sufficient for the policy itself to just be in the handbook and not be a handout, as far as I can. Okay. Anything else on that? I mean, I know we've discussed, the details of the policy at previous meetings. I think we've all had a chance to provide the director with some input. Does anybody else have anything that's catching their eye, or any questions we wanna ask before we pass this on?
Who revokes at the end? Is the library, is that you? Is that the board?
Right, it says the library can revoke a card. Is it clear who at the library has authority to?
Just add director after
I
that.
was gonna say, yeah, it can be changed to the library director, if,
Just do that.
yeah.
Okay.
Do you want me to bring this back next month with that, or just,
It's such a minor point,
Okay.
we could probably
Okay.
pass with a simple amendment. Okay, but yeah, I would think that would be. Okay. Any other questions? All right. Well, in that case, I will entertain a motion to approve the one card policy and agreement form as presented prior to the meeting. Proviso that the minor addition be made of, and the final point in the policy, that the word director be added after the word library at any point in the library. Director can revoke a card.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion?
We're not reviewing this in any way, legal review, not necessary.
No, well, because it is being added to the
We still.
We have to
handbook,
send it,
we're still gonna send it through the city attorney's office, just as part of our procedure, yeah.
newly minted?
Newly.
That's right.
Yes. All right, any further? Okay, in that case, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, and that can be, sent along to the city attorney for his review. Cool, thank you. All right, that concludes, number 8, old business. We move on to number 9, new business. The first item under 9 is collections in the Mitchell building. So it is apparently an ongoing matter of discussion as to the history of the Mitchell building, its legal ownership, its legal responsibility, etc. I don't intend to get into all that. As far as I'm concerned, the board's primary responsibility is first of all to determine how much of the Hillsdale Community Library's property or collections are still inside that building, and what we are going to do about that property and collections. Because as far as I'm concerned, anything legally, anything that's the legal property of the Hillsdale Community Library should be within the facilities we are actually managing. So I think we need to move towards getting a complete list of what all is still in the Mitchell building, that's our responsibility, and then coming up with a plan for genuinely taking responsibility for those items. So one thing that occurred to me is we could form a subcommittee to handle the matter. The first thing that occurs to me is the first thing we need to know is just we need to have a list of what all is in there. And potentially then the first thing that needs to happen is for the director to reach out to the Mitchell people and potentially arrange a meeting and discuss our concerns and, you know, see if we can get any kind of catalog or list of those items. So I guess I'd ask the director, how much do we know at this point?
I think in our meeting last week, I told you that there are a few random lists of things in what I have. Like most of it is more of the physical items, or like bookshelves and stuff that I don't feel, and also I think it was paintings that we are not, I don't think we need to take ownership of that really.
Well, the question is, I suppose, forgive me for interrupting, the question is, even if we don't consider them currently assets, are they legally our property?
Yeah, okay.
Because even if we don't think we want them, if they're legally our property, we still have to decide what to do about them.
Yeah, so there might also then be, I know that I could find the one or two that was, you know, the furniture structures, which I don't think we need to pull out. I don't think we need to pull out that sort of stuff because, as I've said, we have very little space as it is to do that. But there is a small possibility that I might have something of that same list here too. And I know that Karen in previous meetings has mentioned a very specific collection of books.
Yeah.
That is really the only thing that I consciously know of prior to doing a dig into what I may have here.
So if, say, our goal for next month's meeting would be to have a more comprehensive report on what we think is in that building that is our property, is that something, one, you would know how to approach, and B, you would have time to deal with?
Likely.
Okay.
I would say probably the bigger concern would be time, just now
Sure,
that we're,
of course.
now that we're down a net, which like, doesn't seem like it would be a lot because she was only here 2 days, but there's a lot that is hard to do when you're up at the, you know, at the front desk.
Yeah.
So, like, for example, today it was just Heidi and I for like over half the day, so it was just us two here. And so like in that circumstance, like, I can't just leave the building because I can't leave Heidi here alone. Now, I can just say, all right, I normally don't tend to leave the building on Tuesdays and Thursdays anyways, because there's less people here. So very easily I can say, all right, on a Wednesday or a Monday, when there's 3 people here, it's easier for me to leave. But it would also depend on the schedule of the people at the Mitchell and what works for them. So,
I also wonder if an easy part of this might just be Richard and those guys saying the stuff we don't want, we know that it's belongs to the library. I don't know if there's anything in that category that you just wanna create space.
I'm not on the board.
Oh, he's not speaking for the board, okay.
I'm-
But we
I'm
might
just a
reach out to the
bystander.
board and say, are there things that you just immediately wanna get rid of, and then we can make a decision. Do we wanna bring that here? Do we wanna sell it?
So I guess the next piece of the discussion then is, should this be a matter of the director contacting the Mitchell board? Should this be a matter of us contacting the Mitchell boards to open up this conversation?
I think it wouldn't hurt to have it, and not necessarily meaning like it's you guys leaving me out of it or, you know,
Right.
whatever, but I don't think it would be bad also to have like a board approaching a board sort of a situation.
Yes.
Just so.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Although, like, if you guys were to only wanted it to be me, that would be fine too, but I would think that perhaps just having,
Keep what you're doing for now, especially before you hire someone.
Yeah.
We could figure that out.
Okay.
So if we think it would be more appropriate for the board of the HCL to contact the Mitchell board, to begin this conversation, then even prior to, I suppose if board work is going to be done between our regular meetings, then that has to be done by a subcommittee that's appointed to a particular purpose. So do we want to appoint a subcommittee to deal with this question of communicating with the Mitchell and potentially arranging a meeting?
I will say also, so Karen reached out to me while abroad, telling me that she would be interested
Yes,
in doing that.
and she
And
contacted me as well
I
to
was
say
gonna say,
so.
I think it would make a lot of sense for her to, because I don't know if you guys are from around, like, I feel like she has a lot of city knowledge, like, she knows
Yeah.
a lot. And not to say that you guys don't, but like, she tends to know a lot of like historical things
Yeah, she's got some background.
pertaining, yeah, I feel like she has good connection to know
Mhm.
certain things there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And yes, Trustee Hill also reached out to me and requested, she saw this would be on the agenda, and she requested that if a subcommittee be formed, that she'd be on that.
Okay.
So she's already volunteered.
Okay.
So how does that sound to
I think that
everybody else?
sounds
Do we
like
think
a good
the
idea.
appointment of a subcommittee and our board contacting their board sounds like the next step in dealing with this issue? Okay. In that case, I will make the motion, since I think it says that the president appoints boards. I will make the motion that I and Trustee Hill be delegated the responsibility to open communications with the Mitchell Research Center Board regarding Hillsdale Community Library materials that are still in the Mitchell building.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Alright. I will try to copy everybody on any initial communications regarding that, just so everyone's tracking what's happening when. But obviously, in order to avoid any OMA issues, only Karen or I, as the appointed subcommittee, should actually engage in ongoing communication until our next meeting. Okay, thank you. The next issue under new business is our contracts with our townships. Now, we've raised the discussion, it keeps coming up. Should we reconsider the terms of our contracts with the townships? Because it's been a while since anybody even considered the question. And the first problem is I don't believe we still have copies of our contracts with the
I was gonna
townships.
say, I know that I sent you the Cambria one
Right,
from however long ago that was,
Right.
before they split from us. The only other thing, I don't think maybe I did or didn't send them to you, there were letters either from Bree, so 2 directors ago, or the last director, one of them. Of course, I'm not sure if they sent a piece of mail or not, but they had written up letters as well, so that made me just wonder if they were only writing letters to simply say, hey, we're charging you, or if the letter kind of served as some sort of,
yeah. See,
which
there should be signed contracts
I-
that our board voted to agree to and the township boards
Mhm.
voted to agree to somewhere on file.
Mhm,
If they're sending us a lot of money, one assumes there's paperwork saying
Right.
they're going to give us that money.
right,
So the next question is, if we can't find those in our files, are they on a file somewhere with the city, potentially with city finance? So the next question is, have we asked the city if they have those contracts on file?
I have not, and I have not, no, I can't.
Okay. And then the next step then is if we can't find the contracts, if we contact the city and the city doesn't have the contracts, then we have to turn around and reach out to the townships and say, by the way, we can't find contracts. Do you have copies of these
Yeah.
contracts? And if so, great, we can move on from there.
Yeah,
So would you be willing to contact the city, and if the city comes up nothing, send messages to the boards of these townships
Yes.
inquiring for that
Yes,
paperwork.
I have no problem doing that.
Okay, thank you.
The only thing that I wonder, and if you guys know this, it might kind of give me a little bit, kind of direct me in a good place to start looking, is would these contracts have been originating from around the time when you moved into this building, or dating farther back than that?
I'm afraid I don't have a sense of that.
Yeah, that's where I'm kind of like, if it's more recent than not, then I would think to look in one place over the other, but, I guess I can look in both places, you know?
I mean, my impression is this is a long-standing arrangement, but I just started serving in 2019, so my feeling of what is long-standing is probably a little truncated.
I was gonna say, I also am one to believe that I think it's longer than when this building was constructed, because somebody,
Wow.
and it may have been somebody at the Friends meeting who said something, it may have been somebody else where they said, I live in Cambria Township and I used to be able to get a library card. And so obviously, to me, the way that that conversation had, gone through, made it seem like that would have been a conversation happening pre-building construction, so.
Rebecca,
Mhm.
some of the people in Cambria Township don't realize that they're no longer connected with.
Yeah, that's where I'm also kind of wondering too. I know that they recently, they cut ties with us, I wanna say, so this building I think was opened in 2003 or 2004, one of those 2 years. I think they cut ties with us probably a decade or so after, so somewhere between like 2010 and 2020, somewhere in that time frame, if not sooner than that. So
I recall it coming up as an item of discussion when I first joined the board, that, it was mentioned that there was something about, the loss of one of our township, contracts, but as having occurred in the past, so I don't have a sense of exactly when that happened.
yeah, and there are people still who they will come to us for a card and say I'm in Cambria, thinking that we were, so that leads me to believe that the cut from us together was more recent, but.
That might be in the financials, if you ask city financials, hey, when was the last time Cambria Township sent us a check?
Yeah,
They
yeah.
might have that, so that we could have a sense of that timeline. And and once you get that, maybe that's potentially the point at which the contracts with the other townships were renegotiated.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's possible, but we need to do a little work rebuilding the history there.
I agree.
Alright, but yeah, if you're okay with reaching out to the city, and then if the city doesn't have anything, reaching out to our townships.
Okay.
Thank you. Anything further on that? Alright, thank you very much. Next is the item we added under new business, which is, city employee cards.
Yeah, so like I said, I don't have much to say, but I had been thinking about it, especially more so after on Monday, even though council members aren't necessarily city employees, but council members have to be residents of.
Yeah.
So they qualify for a free card anyways, but I don't know, just after talking with Mr. Morrissey, or when he spoke up, which he had brought something up about, do we send notices to people who have expired cards? We do. We had, I think, 2 people come in today saying, I got this notice that our card is expiring tomorrow. So we do, and I think when I said on Monday, it depends on their notifications. I genuinely think that's what it is. Some people just, yeah. But going back to the city card, I have brought it up today, earlier, like I said, at the department head meeting, and from my understanding, I have only really worked for one other city library, and that was my first library job. in East Lansing, so a little bit bigger than here. And, they offered city cards for employees who did not necessarily live here, but they work in the city. And so you have to imagine that for people who work a full-time job, it could be, 8 to 5, 9 to 5, depending. It can potentially be easier for them to just stop here instead of there, because they do serve our community in some sense, one way or the other. If they're working on our trees or the roads or all of the other things. So I had also reached out again, just like the one card, I had reached out to the listserv of all the other public libraries today, actually this morning, and there were, my question was simply, do you offer these cards and do they have some sort of different agreement, or do you simply just on your ILS, instead of it being, city or subscription, stuff like that, if it's just city employee. And I think I'd only gotten like 1 or 2 responses last I knew, and it wasn't anything different, anything crazy. But also part of my want to do that is just because, I don't see many people who work for the city coming in and reading books, and I would just like to give them the opportunity to.
Unless you're one of your long-term goals. So.
Yeah, so, I can't necessarily go into our system and, look people up name by name to say, do you have a card and all that sort of stuff, but, obviously if it's something that they can get for free, they might be more motivated to do it.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, and here's I don't know, like, if this were something that after a few meetings, was at one point, voted on and accepted, like the one card, I would send an email to all the staff and every department to say, hey, you guys all qualify. That's not to say that people would even, come in and get a card, it's just simply, it exists, if people wanted it. So, that's really about all I have. I don't have anything grand, I just, again, like the one card policy, or one card, wanted to bring it up to you guys, if you guys thought immediately bad idea, immediately good idea, anything like that, to where if you didn't think it was,
I think this is a good idea.
No, my first impression is that, yeah, it sounds like a perfectly good and fair idea. So it sounds like what this would be is a change to the library card policy
I think so.
in the manual that specifies what what the different populations that can have a card are. Residents of the city, residents of the townships of Hillsdale and Jefferson, then the rules for non-residents. And what we could add under the list of residents entitled to a free library card, we could add a 3rd category, which is even folks who aren't residential in our regular service areas, the city or the 2 townships. The 3rd category would be city employees are also entitled to a free library card.
So one of the emails also said that they have, not only that, and I don't know how I feel about this part, but anybody who owns a business in the city, and I don't know enough about the city landscape of like local business around here, but I kind of think that most of them are from around here anyways, I would say.
Most of the staff are too, I can only think of a few people.
Yeah.
that
Who
live
are
outside.
city
Yeah, so they
employees
would-
and not city residents.
Yeah, that's, so my mom's a librarian, and so I was talking to her about that too, and I was like, I would imagine that most people probably live somewhere within and not, super far away, but there's always outliers, so.
Well, it strikes me as it's kind of like with the one card, where we are not responding to an expressed need, but we are responding to what we think would potentially be taken advantage of were it to be available.
Yeah.
So if you would like to formulate a proposal, a proposed change to the library card policy to formally submit to the board for adoption, I think it would be favorably received.
Okay.
That's my impression. Sure.
That's all I have to say on that then for now.
Wonderful. Well, that just brings us then to number 10, board comments. Do we have anything to add?
Thought you did a great job on Monday. Good presentation.
Yes,
Thank you.
Very graciously had.
Good job. Oh,
Very well.
did you have any thoughts about extending is there any reason to have it expire after a year for residents?
Oh, yeah.
So honestly, like, I don't have any thoughts one way or the other on it. So again, like, in all of the places that I've worked in a library, and maybe I said this on Monday, first place I worked was 5 years. Last job I had before here was 3 years, and here it's 1 year. And obviously with the one card, we have the whole like 90-day thing, which I think
No, that's its own thing.
that's good for that, I believe. I could see it making sense to do something more like 3 years, because all that necessarily, the only thing that we do is just make sure that people still live at their address, still have the same phone number, still have the same email. Like that, we just wanna make sure that if we need to contact them, we can, and if they're still in our legal service area. I think the only advantage to doing it to 1 year, I shouldn't say only advantage, but the advantage that speaks out to me most about doing 1 year is just that, and this sounds almost a little, I guess you could say sinister to say, but like, because libraries are based on property taxes, if you do it to 3 years, then potentially somebody could have a card here, move out of our service area, get a new card, and still have our services as well. So like, for example, like we're the biggest library in Hillsdale County, so you have to imagine that like we probably offer the most, so.
And I could easily envision somebody living within our service area, moving out of our service area, but perfectly happy to keep making use of our services for the next 3 years until their membership ends.
Yeah, so that's why.
I can imagine.
But like the positive part of that is like, at least they're using the library, you know, at least they're wanting to read. But they would have property taxes that are paying for somebody else's library.
Right.
And the only thing off the top of my head that I don't know enough about Verso or ILS is that when you go to add in a new patron, it basically does like a duplicate check, and I'm not sure if addresses fall into that off the top of my head. I have an idea. I would say yes, but I don't honestly remember. And like for some places, it's like if you rent, obviously tenants don't live in the same rental forever normally. I guess I shouldn't say it like that, but there's more variability with that. Now, that could be kind of harder to track, I should say. With house, if somebody moved and I can see, all right, this person has a different last name than you, or are you married to this person? No, well then, that other person would be able to say, okay, they must have moved away or something. So
the other thing that occurs to me is that if you're making sure that people are renewing their account every year, then you have an accurate picture of the number of currently active cardholders. Because if somebody is consistently renewing their card year over year, then regardless of the circulation stats, I would call them an active cardholder because they're taking the time to keep their card renewed.
I agree.
So my initial inclination is if currently the period is 1 year, and if that's not an undue burden on staff, and if no member of the public is complaining about it, I don't see any reason to visit the question unless you as the director want to.
I'm not, it's fine to me. I don't have any reason to jump at extending it at this time. I mean, I know patrons tend to, like, they'll always say, I didn't know this expired. Like, that's, you know, but it kind of, to your point, they are in person when they say that. So obviously they like using the library and want to come back and continue.
Yeah.
So for right now, I would say I would probably just stick to 1 year unless there was like just a really great case made to extending it to 3 years, which
I don't have a case to make. Okay, fine. Anything else under board comments? Well, again, many congratulations on an entirely successful and glowing review. And with that, our next meeting date should be Thursday, June 13th at 5 p.m. And I will happily entertain a motion to adjourn.